Like a backstage pass to the world of fly fishing travel, this is WAYPOINTS, the podcast of destination angling. News and events, helpful travel tips, destination profiles, great stories, and expert advice from some of the most seasoned and experienced names in fishing travel. WAYPOINTS is brought to you by Yellow Dog Fly Fishing Adventures, the industry's #1 specialty travel company for the very best insider knowledge, logistical support, and trip preparation. Freshwater or saltwater, international or domestic, Yellow Dog has you covered for your next fishing adventure. And now, your WAYPOINTS host, Yellow Dog founder and director, Jim Klug.
We are back for another season, and on this episode of WAYPOINTS, our first show of the new season, we'll be discussing the current state of fishing travel and what the road ahead looks like for destination angling, both domestic and international. The big question, is travel back? Is the world of fishing returning to normal, and what will change in the months and years ahead for the traveling angler? Rules and regulations, protocols, availability, travel trends and opportunities. What's changed and what can we expect for the near future as well as long term? How can you, as a traveling angler, plan and prepare for the months and years ahead? Another question, are there any silver linings from all of this? New developments that we can look forward to and possibly even take advantage of moving forward? We're going to discuss all of these things, and we're going to actually go through the list of international destinations that are currently open to the traveling angler and share our thoughts on when those that remain closed may open for the future. Now, I fully realize that this episode is going to have a somewhat limited shelf life and that months from now, things we certainly hope will have changed significantly. If we want to provide useful information, however, updates that are both accurate and relevant to those considering or planning travel for the near future, then we're going to have to accept that this episode and the information that we're presenting will have somewhat of a timestamp. But an accurate and up-to-date overview of the current situation is what's needed. And to help with this discussion, I'm joined today by a gentleman who has worked in the fly fishing and travel industries for years, Mr. Cam Davenport. Many of you likely worked with Cam in the past during his many years of running the Belize and saltwater programs for Yellow Dog, or more recently as the angling sales and operations manager for 11 Experience, a travel company that owns a diverse portfolio of premier properties around the globe. 11 owns fishing lodges and locations in Colorado, Florida, New Zealand, Chile, and Iceland, as well as several non-angling operations in both the U.S. and internationally. So Cam, welcome to the show, and thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So the big question, is fishing travel back? What do you think?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's no question about it. I think that there are not only the anglers that were traveling prior to, but there are now more anglers that are interested in traveling and experiencing what it is on a global level.
Do you think the last year and a half of people being stuck kind of close to home have brought more anglers into the sport? And was that going to translate to more people traveling both domestically and internationally?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think there's no question about it. I mean, we can look at just license sales in the U.S. West, that there are more people recreating and there's more people angling in their own backyard. And people that were maybe not doing that previously, but also people who had never done it before and picking up a fly rod for the first time that are now interested in it. We're certainly seeing on our side, there are more and more people who are calling who have never traveled internationally that now have an interest to do that, which I think is great. I mean, I don't know if this is going to be the likeness of, a river runs through it coming out, but it certainly is looking like the trajectory of the global or international angler is going to continue growing.
Yeah, it certainly seems that there's been a lot of people that have either found their way to the sport for the first time over these last 18 months. And again, not being able to travel for so long, having to look to your own backyard for other opportunities, and in many cases, outdoor recreational opportunities. It's brought new people into the sport, but it's also brought a lot of what I guess I would call lapsed anglers back into the sport. Maybe they fished as kids or when they were young, and this was their opportunity for them to kind of rediscover how cool it was. And turns out they like it, and now they're kind of back.
Yeah, 100%. It's a great way to reconnect with the natural environment. It's a great way to reconnect with a variety of different things and decompress and get away from everything. So I think it's a natural fit.
We've all needed a lot of that this year, for sure.
Absolutely. It's a great way to socially distance.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I can tell you that at Yellow Dog, we've seen a massive uptick since the beginning of 2021. Really, like January 1st hit, and things kind of went crazy. And since then, things have been holding steady, even with the variants and the constant barrage of bad news and sensationalism and kind of the ups and downs of the media reporting. We're definitely seeing that travel is roaring back. And I'll tell you, we're on pace right now to pretty much close out 2021 as the busiest year we've ever had, which I think speaks volumes. And it's not just the new people or people that are chomping at the bit to finally kind of get back into the game and book new trips, but what we're dealing with is a lot of rollovers from the last 18 months of canceled trips. And so you combined all that together and things have never been busier for international travel.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, there's new people that have certainly come. I think that the overall travel industry itself is seeing a much larger uptick than would have probably been predicted. I think everybody predicted that we'd start coming out of this and this would be a significant bump, but I think it's even larger than that, certainly on the angling side. And then you couple on top of that rollovers and credits and just availability starts getting a little bit tighter. Things are going to be pretty tight, and that's going to continue. In my opinion, that'll continue for at least the next year, maybe even 18 months, depending upon the locale.
Well, let's talk about what all this means for destination anglers in particular and specifically. And really, I think that's the first key takeaway as to what the road ahead looks like, what to expect in the months and even the years ahead for destination angling. And number one is exactly that. We know that availability is going to be tight. You factor in all the rollovers and reschedules from the past year and a half. That already means less availability moving forward. You couple that with a new demand. The old way of booking a trip or making reservations where maybe 6 months out, you kind of started thinking about your next saltwater trip or, hey, summer's coming up. Let's get some dates on the books for 3 or 4 months from now. That doesn't work anymore. Talk to us a little bit about the lead time required now for planning and booking, not just a trip, but especially, prime dates, the right guides, the favorite lodge, if it's saltwater, maybe the best tides. The old 3 to 6 month window, that's not really going to cut it.
Yeah. And to step back a little bit, I would actually make the statement that if you are getting that, you should ask yourself, am I going to the right place? Because if you're finding that kind of availability and you found the unicorn, you should ask yourself, okay, well, how did that come about? Or if you're finding something that's out there that is in that and it's discounted, you should really ask yourself, am I going to the right place? Is this the right decision? Because that's just not going to exist for a little while. So you need a lot more lead time. A lot of the guys that I'm talking to, it's a year. We should really start looking a year out. You can certainly find things that are going to be in a shorter window, but the typical 3 to 6 month, I think it's going to be a few years. We may not go back to that because anglers have figured out that this is the destination I want to go. This is the reason that I want to be there. And these are the individuals that I want to be fishing with from a guide perspective and an outfitter perspective. And, when you find those are certainly going to be in high demand.
Well, and you bring up a key point as far as, hey, I just called. They've actually got what they tell me is a prime week available a few months from now. And unless it's a last minute cancellation or something like that, you do really kind of need to ask yourself, well, why does this lodge still have a lot of availability? Because, in this day and age, and we've talked about this on previous programs, very easy for every lodge, guide, outfitter, agent to have a really glossy website, pictures of lots of big fish and smiling sports and anglers. They're promising the world, but as always, you got to do your homework. And one potential red flag, I'm not saying every time because there are things like cancellations, last minute availability, but one potential red flag moving forward is why is every seemingly in-demand lodge, say in this region of Alaska, completely sold out and booked, yet these guys have a whole bunch of availability? I think that's a little bit of a red flag.
Absolutely. I mean, if I was in that position, I would ask myself, well, why is this? Because there's definitely going to be a reason for it. Maybe it's a new lodge. Maybe it's a lodge that had a previous issue or whatever it was, and they had to clear their deck. So they actually refunded instead of rolled or credited. Those are very few and far between, for how our industry reacted and necessarily reacted to, what just took place over the last 18 months. So if I was calling and hunting a trip and looking at a prime date or a prime week, or even if it wasn't a prime date or prime week, but I had a specific guide I wanted to fish with, and they happen to have space and they happen to have that guide and maybe even the accommodation I wanted, and all three things came together, I mean, I'd probably look at that shorter notice stuff and say, okay, here's my 3 top priorities. I'm hoping I'm going to get 2 of those. If you get them all, I'd probably ask myself, maybe I should look in a little bit more. And a cancellation is certainly going to be the rationale behind it.
Yeah.
And that's what you would hope for, to say, okay, I feel comfortable.
That's the realistic unicorn. Totally. Cancellations. Beyond that,
yep,
maybe
absolutely.
Maybe not. Well, we're already seeing, as far as availability goes, certain destinations, the Seychelles, for example, we are booking well into the 2025 season. Everything for this season pretty much sold out. Next year, pretty much sold out. The U.S. West is already filling incredibly fast for all of summer 2022, and we're still closing out this 21 season. Prime spring saltwater dates are filling up faster than ever for March, April, May, June in places like Belize and the Yucatan. So again, big number one takeaway, availability is going to be tight. Start earlier than you normally would.
Yeah, and don't think that the availability issue is just going to go away in 2022. It's going to continue to tail. So if you're thinking about a trip in 2023, start doing that research. Start making those phone calls. Definitely start doing that right now.
Yeah, it's not too early to start planning.
Absolutely not.
All right, that's our first takeaway. Second big takeaway, vaccination status is going to be a factor in the months and years ahead for international travel. And I'm gonna say right away, we're not looking to start a political conversation. I honestly don't want people to send a bunch of emails or call us looking to engage on this subject, because frankly, I don't really care where everybody stands on this. I'm just telling you, it's a fact from an international travel standpoint that vaccination status is going to be a factor for travel moving forward.
100%. I mean, regardless of political perspective, which I have zero interest in entertaining and getting into that conversation either, it's just going to be the fact of the matter that there's going to be 2 camps. There's going to be the vaccinated and there's going to be the non-vaccinated. There's going to be certain countries that will allow both camps to enter the country. The fashion in which they enter and the fashion in which they travel throughout that country will be distinctly different. And we're seeing that today. There's definitely, countries that are out there that you can enter vaccinated or not vaccinated, but the way that you enter and the freedom that you have to travel are very different.
Well, and we're also seeing 2 other developments. One are countries that are saying, no, hey, we're open if you're vaccinated. Come on in. If you're not, don't even bother. Don't ask. There's no path forward. Will that continue to increase? The number of those countries continue to increase where they have that high standard? It's likely, I think, certainly in the year ahead. The other thing we're seeing are certain lodges, and this is really catching on, that are doing their own vaccine mandates. From their perspective, they want to protect their staff, their guides, the other guests. They want it to be as safe a place as possible. And again, you can debate your own scientific perspective on things, but these lodges are implementing their own mandates. I think it's going to become more and more common where, again, if you have that vaccine card, you're going to be welcomed. It's going to be a much easier path. And I think that's just a reality looking forward, certainly for the months ahead and probably the next couple of years.
Yeah. And I mean, pre-COVID, there are plenty of countries across the globe that you can't go to unless you have a specific vaccine. I was going to say the same thing. I mean, you're not going into the Amazon and going peacock fishing unless you've got your yellow fever vaccine, and you have to prove that upon entry. So that's the direction that this is going to go. Maybe not globally, but I think predominantly in the locations that anglers want to go, especially when you start looking at places like a Kiribati, a Christmas Island. Yeah. You look at these really small communities that
very susceptible to big problems health-wise.
Absolutely. Even the common cold becomes a big issue when you look at these really small, very remote community bases.
Well, that's kind of the number 2 big takeaway, vaccination status moving forward. Number 3, flights and transportation schedules. They have been absolutely disrupted over the last year and a half. That's probably going to continue for some time. Now, we are seeing improvement. We are seeing more routes come back online, more international options, back in play. But things are still going to be somewhat disrupted for the near future.
Absolutely. I mean, I've had to fly quite a bit over the last few months for sure. I think I've had, well, actually the most recent trip I just took was the first one that I haven't had an issue. So, I mean, my recommendation to anybody would be, hey, build in a little bit extra time because things are changing and just be patient. Yeah. Staffing and all of that other kind of stuff that airlines have and carriers and all of the other things that they have to deal with. It hasn't ramped back up as fast as we would all hope. And there's certainly some other issues at play there too, but just be patient.
Yeah. Be patient, take your time and be nice.
Yeah. And I would actually, be nice is probably the greatest point. Being nice, especially in the airport, I've figured out over the years, man, if you're nice and you're kind of cordial, you tend to get a little bit better helping hand than if you come in pretty hot and steamy.
And there are way too many people running hot right now. We can all agree on that.
Absolutely.
I mean, the anger level and the red line threshold that's out there, everyone just needs to take a deep breath, especially when it comes to fishing travel, because, hey, we're going to do something we love. We're going to these amazing places that fly fishing takes us. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be relaxing. So be patient, take a breath, be nice, and remember what it is we're doing here.
Yeah. And even, airlines are a hot button, I think, in general for a lot of people when it comes to travel, especially international travel.
Even without a pandemic.
Even without a pandemic, exactly. But the other thing that I would, add to that is do the same with your operator. The operator is doing the best they possibly can to be as up to date on everything for you to protect you as well as protecting themselves and their staff. Things are changing pretty rapidly and they're, moving back and forth, left and right, up and down. So a little patience there, I think, goes a long way too, because they're operating in your best interest. They're not trying to do something that would have an adverse effect on your trip or your entry or your exit.
Yeah. Great points. And great takeaways, I think, for the months and likely the years ahead for traveling anglers. Well, another key subject, of course, is how to protect your trip investments moving forward. How can you plan ahead, reserve dates, and schedule future trips while still protecting your trip deposits and payments? And we're going to talk more about this in just a bit. And in fact, we're going to bring on another guest in a moment here who has some great advice on this subject as well as great perspective. But first, Cam, we're going to roll through some of our top angling destinations worldwide. We're going to talk about the current status of each regarding accessibility, open versus closed, current regulations, and travel protocols, which countries are wide open or somewhat open, which countries remain closed for the time being, and what we're hearing about possible openings for the near future. And again, I get that there's a shelf life to this information. As we know, things are going to continue to change and evolve on a regular basis. And if you're listening to this episode months after the September release, then some of the information is going to be different. That said, I think it's important, worthwhile, helpful to bring people up to speed on the overall travel situation as it currently stands. Now, rather than doing separate lists of freshwater and saltwater destinations, we're just going to run it from the top. We're simply going to go alphabetically. We're going to start with Alaska. Cam, you were just there a couple days ago. Alaska, open or closed?
Wide open. And fishing really, really well. We had unbelievable weather for what was the first week of September. We certainly had cooler temps and rain, but it was really good, wide open, travel's easy.
And this year, the lodges operated from start to finish this season. Sold out capacities, availability was tight. Last summer, I was up in Alaska about the same time, September. There was testing protocols when you got to the airport, pre-trip testing. All of that is gone for this summer. It is just as simple as flying to any other part of the U.S. Mm-hmm. They're wide open. The fishing's been great, and we anticipate that for next year it's going to be the same.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Difficulty finding prime spots. Don't wait. The demand is high.
Yeah.
Yeah. Moving south, Argentina, open or closed?
Argentina currently is closed. Opening very soon is what I've heard or rumored. Is that announcement is probably imminently approaching.
Yeah, we're hearing from very legitimate sources that the Argentine season, which usually begins in November, is going to happen. So we're anticipating some really positive news in the weeks ahead. We expect that there will be a full 2021 season commencing this November. So we're excited about that. We're going to obviously keep people up to date, whether or not it requires proof of vaccination, along with a negative PCR test on your way down, or either or, vaccination or negative testing. We don't know, but we're waiting to hear and expect some big news on that coming up very soon. Australia.
Closed.
Very closed. And likely to remain closed to outside travelers at this point for the coming year. We are hearing rumors about a possible path to entry by mid-2022. And when Australia does open, it is very likely to be to outside travelers who are fully vaccinated. So that's the Australia situation. A little closer to home, Bahamas.
Open. I was there this winter. It was awesome.
Yes, wide open in the Bahamas. No anticipated changes moving forward. Currently, all travelers are required to obtain a negative COVID-19 test, either a rapid antigen test or PCR, taken no more than 5 days prior to the date of arrival. But easily done. It's such a quick and easy spot to access from the U.S. Wide open. Prime availability still for late fall for the weeks and months ahead for this winter and spring. It's filling up quickly, but a lot of good spots, and the Bahamas are welcoming anglers for sure. Another country you and I care a lot about and have both spent a lot of time there over the years, Belize.
Open.
Wide open. Since October of 2020. Mm-hmm. And things are going well down there. They've seen a steady flow of international travelers, a lot of yellow dog travelers returning with very incredible reports and stories of success from north to south, all throughout the region. They have continued to take a consistent kind of position on protecting their locals and travelers alike from COVID-19. Good policies in place, good pre-trip testing. They are requiring all international tourists currently to take a negative or to arrive with a negative COVID test within 96 hours of beginning your travel. But pretty easy. Most of the operations down there, you are required to stay at a gold standard hotel, lodge, or fishing resort. And that's great. You know that they're taking all measures to keep their guests protected and safe, as well as their staff. And things have been fishing great down there, right?
Yeah. A place that's, it's near and dear to my heart for sure. Spent a lot of my years down there. And they actually were one of the ones that led the way, really in the reopening, and then this gold medal standard that the tourism board put into place. So good on them. Really small country that reacted, quickly and in an appropriate manner for sure.
And I'll throw out there for Belize, the combination of national legislation 12 years ago that mandated catch and release for bonefish, permit, and tarpon, coupled with the new law in Belize that bans gill nets all throughout the country. This is a country and a destination that's going to such great lengths to protect their sport fishing resources, and we are seeing it happen. We are seeing the difference. The fishing has been outstanding this year. Next on the list, Bolivia. It is open. We've had travelers entering and exiting the country with ease since May of 2021. Some pre-trip testing required, but the golden dorado fishing in Bolivia this season has been amazing. Things have already largely booked up for next year, so this is one you don't want to wait on. Here's another interesting one. Brazil, Cam.
Open.
Yeah. We have had people down there. It's not high on people's list right now because they continue to be a little bit of a problematic country, but it is open. The Amazon is open. It has been fishing well, and all of our Brazilian operations are functioning for the current season and the season ahead. So it's possible.
Yeah, Brazil be an interesting one. I'd love to get down there and do it again, especially considering some of those fisheries, not all those fisheries, what it would be like after having it been rested. Oh. That's one of those places that if you really rest those fisheries, I couldn't imagine what it would be like.
And that's one of the silver linings that we kind of mentioned in the beginning of the show. If there are some positive takeaways from this entire gong show of this pandemic, one is that a lot of these fisheries, both saltwater, freshwater, jungle fisheries, as we talk about in Brazil, you take these fisheries and you rest them for 12, 18, 24 months, the results are going to be pretty incredible. And being one of the first to come back in and have that fresh fishing, there are some amazing opportunities there, no doubt.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next on the list, Canada.
It's finally open. It is open. Yeah. Our neighbor to the north is open.
Yes, as of August 9th, 2021. There's still some questions about border crossings by land in certain places, but it is open via commercial air. We're looking forward to a good steelhead season ahead and late season in kind of eastern Canada. But finally open to the north. It's been a while.
Yeah, it has. And, if anybody's looking to go into Canada with the way that they've rolled and all of those operators and how their closure is extended, if you're thinking about it for next season, now's the time to call.
Yeah, there's very little left.
There's going to be very, very little left. Some of those operators, when you're starting to look at BC and that kind of stuff for the seasonality right now, they're obviously able to get in their salmon and steelhead seasons, whether that's on the Dean or wherever it might be. So they'll probably have a little bit more, but it'll be tight.
All right, here's one. Breaking news, right? Chile.
So Chile is technically closed at the moment, but it has just been announced today, actually, that Chile will open October 1st. So they have come out and made that formal announcement to non-resident foreigners. So that means that the borders are going to open. This is a brand new announcement today. It was literally announced in Chile today. There's still some gray area to be figured out, but a couple of the key takeaways as they continue to roll out is this is their first announcement that October 1st is going to be opening. They're going to continue to update probably on a bi-monthly or maybe just on a monthly basis. You're going to be required to have a negative PCR test. It's looking like it needs to be vaccinated. Non-vaccinated is probably going to be a non-traveler or non-entry at this point. And then at the moment, they're stating that there will be a quarantine. But that quarantine is also a topic of conversation that they're going to be removing and continuing to evaluate. So all positive news, and it's all moving in the right direction in preparation for that season getting kicked off here.
Absolutely. And like Argentina, the season in Chile typically kind of opens up in early November to mid-November. So we are expecting a full season ahead. There is good availability this year. I think a lot of people were kind of waiting on the sidelines to see what was going to happen, but it looks like all systems are go for the season ahead. We are super pumped to get Patagonia back in play, finally.
Absolutely. Yeah, that one, I'm particularly excited about that one to, get out of here during the winter and head down south and get in some good trout fishing this winter.
Now, another piece of kind of breaking news, we found out today as well that it looks like Christmas Island out in the Pacific is going to open to tourism in January of 2022. This is big news. Christmas Island was literally the first international destination to lock down and shut down when the pandemic first started. They have had it completely closed since the very beginning. We are still waiting on flight details from Fiji Airlines as far as when they're going to resume service, but that's likely coming. This is a fishery that by the time it opens in January will have been rested for basically 2 years, and we expect good things, but super stoked to hear about Christmas Island. Saying the government came out, said they will be opening to tourism in January of 2022.
Gosh, that's exciting. I mean, I can't imagine what it would be like after 2 years of those flats being closed.
Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah, that should make quite a difference.
Absolutely.
There'd be a big...
That'll be special.
A big tidal wave of people wanting to get back and fish there for sure. Colombia, kind of an up-and-coming destination, mostly jungle and peacock fishing, but some really good saltwater fishing and blue water fishing in Colombia as well. Look for a lot more out of this destination in the years ahead. This is kind of an up-and-coming hot destination. They are currently open. No testing required to enter, and they fall squarely in the open category. Next one, Cook Islands, another Pacific destination.
Currently closed.
Yeah. We do know that most of the population of the Cook Islands is already fully vaccinated, but they still have no set date to reopen, and they will likely follow the exact same timing and travel protocols of New Zealand when it comes to opening to outside travelers. So perhaps late 2022, we're keeping an eye on that. Costa Rica.
Open.
Open.
Wide open.
Yeah, fantastic family destination, known for its jungles, ecotour opportunities, also its blue water fishing. It is open to all travelers currently, regardless of vaccination status. So that is good news there. Now, next on the list, this one's a little bit more complicated. Cuba, which is definitely one of my favorite destinations and certainly one of our favorite fisheries in the Caribbean. They have been basically closed completely to the world since April of 2020, the early days of the pandemic. We do anticipate that commercial flights will resume sometime in the fall of 2021, likely this November. And along with that, we're going to see the reopening of many of the Cuban fisheries. Once it is opened, and they've got a pretty aggressive vaccination program down there. I read today they're vaccinating infants, everybody on the island, 11.5 million people that live on the island of Cuba, all either vaccinated or about to be, whether I guess they want to or not.
Yeah,
a little different down there. But we do know that when it opens up, it is bound to be an amazing year for fishing in Cuba. So we're looking ahead to better days for the Cuban people and a return to the Cuban fishery for sure. And actually, we have actually had a few people down there this year that were able to go down via charters to the Bahamas. They said the fishing was exceptional. So
yeah.
You can imagine.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I can imagine. You got to love Cuba too. It's always just kind of hard to say what's going on.
Yeah.
Is it open or not? And then you can, we have it. A couple that were able to get charters and get down in there.
Yeah. It's a complicated destination. We tell people all the time, do not try to do Cuba on your own. There's way too much going on there. And that is where working with people that really know the ins and outs of those fisheries, of the travel and logistics pays huge dividends. So we're always happy to help you out with your questions on Cuba. Dubai and the UAE.
It's open.
That's right. Queen fishing in Dubai, a great stopover point on the way to the Seychelles or India or any place in that part of the world. But Dubai and the UAE are currently open. Another kind of little known yet up and coming destination, West Africa, Gabon, the country of Gabon, known for some massive tarpon.
Yeah, currently closed. Gabon is definitely a place I want to go. I was actually just reading, I forget the name of the book right now, actually, about tarpon fishing in Africa and Brian O'Keefe's story with Billy Pate. And it's just one of these things that you read about. And it's like, oh my gosh, I've got to go there. His was Sierra Leone.
Yeah, he was close though. And our friend Arnaud Matty has got his new tarpon operation over there. And we're pretty excited to get up and running with those guys once we can get there and experience it. Guatemala, open.
And if you like blue water, Guatemala is a great place to go.
Yeah, they've been wide open really since the beginning, and the fishing has been great. Guyana, jungle fishing for Arapaima, open as well. A little bit more of a niche fishery, but if you want to go and catch the largest freshwater scaled fish in the world, that is the place to do it. Massive, massive Arapaima. Another Caribbean flats destination, Honduras.
Open, yeah, and that's another one that, the silver lining of the rested fishery there. That's kind of a smaller, more intimate fishery. Great little bone fishery and permit. Really good permit fishery.
Very good. Yeah, the Bay Islands.
Yep, that would be an interesting one to get down there after it's been rested a little bit.
Yeah. Next one on the list, and you have become an expert in this over the last year or so, the country of Iceland.
Iceland is open. I'm actually heading over there Monday. It's winding down. The season's starting to wind down, but it has been open all season long. Requirements for entry have changed throughout the season, but currently it's a negative PCR test within 72 hours of your arrival, which is key. And that's one of the elements when you're looking at all of these different countries that you're traveling to, is whether or not it's a PCR test or an antigen test 72 hours prior to your departure or your arrival in country. And then you clear through. And if you're going to be heading to Iceland, I think this will probably remain at least maybe the next year. COVID.is is the app that you want to have. It will help you get in through the border process much easier. It collects all of your data, it gives you a barcode. You basically give it to the people that are screening there, and they pull everything that they need right there so that you can enter a little bit easier than if you show up and you just have all your paperwork with you.
Nice. Well, good news. Iceland open. Looking forward to a very busy season in the summer 2022 as well. India closed. Travel to India for tourism and most other short-term purposes still not permitted as of this month, but we'll see what happens down the road for India. Mauritius, home of St. Brandon's Atoll. This is a complicated one. Mauritius has actually opened up to foreigners and tourists. As of October 1st, they will be open. But the remote out island locations, including St. Brandon's Atoll, is still not reopened. So we are not running a fall 2021 season, but we do fully expect that the spring 2022 season for St. Brandon's will happen. So we're looking forward ahead to that. Next one, obvious one, Mexico.
Open. Yeah.
Has been open pretty much since the beginning.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not really sure Mexico closed. I think you could pretty much get there the entire time.
That's right. Yucatan, Baja Peninsula, open to international tourists. It's been fishing great. No testing required for entrance into the country. Still tons of flights down to Cancun to access a lot of these Yucatan fisheries. And hands down, one of the most open and easily accessible travel options for the near future. You can go tomorrow if you want. Mongolia, a little more complicated. In limbo, the government of Mongolia announced that the country was going to reopen for international travel on July 1st, as long as you had proof of full vaccination. And then they kind of rolled that back by saying, well, yeah, you can still come, but we're going to have a mandatory 7-day quarantine upon arrival. So that really, in effect, kind of moved it back into the closed category for anglers. No one's going to go in quarantine for a week in order to fish for a week. So 2021 summer did not happen, second summer in a row. Season's been canceled, but we are looking ahead to the 2022 season, which is 99% sold out. Just kind of a word of warning there. And we are already booking well into 2023 for Mongolia. So one to start early on. Cam, New Zealand.
So New Zealand's a tough one. It's closed. We have been getting information from the government, which is great. They have announced that they are going to open in 2022. However, they're going to have a ranking system is essentially what it's going to be for the countries that they are going to open to. I would say, and confidently, the U.S. is not going to be on that list in our current state. And then I wouldn't be surprised if things actually shift, given the fact that they just went back into quarantine and they closed the Tasman bubble and they kind of went backwards. They had some cases that spurred up, or Delta in Auckland, and all of the cases were specific to Auckland. They weren't very many, but it was one of those things that they're very quick to act whenever that happens. So, technically, as of today, it's going to open at some point in 2022. It's just undetermined what countries it will open to. I think fall of 2022 is more realistic in looking at, when U.S. or North American anglers could potentially get back in there.
Yeah, we'll be keeping a close eye on that one. We have some phenomenal lodges down there, great guides, and a lot of anglers hungry to get back to New Zealand. Oman is currently open, hot new kind of permit destination. A lot of attention on the country of Oman lately. They are open. Kamchatka, the Kamchatka Peninsula in Russia, closed. We have had now 2 seasons in a row cancel, but we are planning on things running for 2022. And we're pretty much sold out for 2022. Already looking ahead to 23. But I can imagine how good the rainbow fishing is going to be after 2 years of not seeing a single angler over there.
Yeah, there's definitely not going to be a safe mouse over there.
No, not at all. Seychelles, open. The Seychelles are currently open. Entry is allowed for visitors from all countries with just a couple of exceptions. One of those actually was South Africa, and that just changed a couple days ago. So now that's wide open as well. You need to have a negative COVID PCR test within 72 hours of departure from your home airport, but the Seychelles is open. We are looking at a sold out season ahead. Should be incredible. We were able to operate the last few months of last season, and things went incredibly smooth. It was great. We're looking forward to a very productive and busy Seychelles season ahead. But as I said a few minutes ago, we are already booking trips up into 2025 for the Seychelles.
Wow.
Yeah, certainly one of the most in demand out there. Rounding out the list, we've got Tanzania. Currently open. That's a legitimate tigerfish destination, incredible place to visit. They are open for the season ahead. The season kicks off there in October. And lastly, Uruguay. They are currently closed, but we expect that they're going to follow suit of Chile and Argentina.
Yeah, I think we're going to start seeing a lot of that. We've been rumored, whether it's Uruguay, Chile, Argentina, there's been the murmurings coming out. And now those are actually starting to take place. I think Chile with the October 1st, we'll start to see some of the others that follow suit. Again, follow and review the requirements closely, because I think that they will all vary slightly. If you're traveling to South America, it's not going to be a blanket, this is how you're going to get in. I think there's going to be different requirements depending upon each of these countries.
Yeah, and I will mention that on the yellowdogflyfishing.com website, we have a very detailed and up-to-date COVID resource page that goes through every single country that's of interest to anglers, gives you, current regulations, protocols, what's required. We update this on a weekly basis. So it's a great resource to go and find out what your options are and what's needed. And lastly, we talked about Alaska. We didn't really talk about the other domestic U.S. destinations, but obviously all are currently open to U.S. anglers as well as visitors from certain countries. That's going to continue to improve. But not only are they open, they're busy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I to step back a sec, I didn't know that you had that COVID page. That may make my life a little bit easier. So I may start using that on a daily basis too.
It's a great resource.
But yeah, the U.S. West, absolutely. The U.S. But I mean, I think every operator in the U.S. West just set every possible record they could have. And that's continuing, and I think it's really cool to see the international elements. Fantastic. I personally love to travel and meet new people, see new things and new cultures and all of it. But it's also fun to, visit the U.S. West, visit your own home waters, reconnect with what all of those things are. Because we have a place that globally other anglers are traveling to come and visit and see what is, the U.S. West, whether it's trout fishing or warm water species, which I've certainly found myself fishing more and more as, our rivers have gotten a little bit busier with some of the increase in interest for sure.
No, it's definitely good to rediscover kind of what's in our own backyard for sure, because it is special. Well, a lot of great options, more options, travel options, international options coming back online very soon. Stay tuned. Check out that COVID resource page on Yellow Dog because we update that all the time. And, the world is continuing to open and evolve, which is good news. So back to the topic of protecting your trips and your travel from disruptions, cancellations, closures, pandemic shutdowns. We know that the last year and a half, it's been tricky with regard to travel insurance and coverage, as many of the standard kind of tried and true policies essentially failed to provide coverage or positive solutions in the face of pandemic-specific closures and lockdowns. And as a result, a lot of traveling anglers are now somewhat uncertain or at best confused about the right options for protecting their trip investments. Well, to help address the subject, we brought in an expert, our good friend and a true trip insurance guru, Kimberly Franke. She is the founder and owner of Montana-based Kanna Travel Services. They offer comprehensive travel insurance, emergency evac coverage, flight solutions, and airline ticketing, and really focus on the angling, the traveling, angling, and hunting communities. Kimberly is hands down one of the most knowledgeable people in the industry and the person that I always look to for the best and most current info available when it comes to trip insurance and what's going on. So Kimberly, welcome and thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, it's great to be here again, Jim.
Well, it has been a hectic 18 months for you.
Yeah, a little bit. It's been quite nutty for everybody, hasn't it?
Yeah. Well, give us a few of your key trip insurance takeaways from 2020. What advice are you now giving clients based on what you've seen and what you've learned and what you've personally experienced during the pandemic?
I think the biggest takeaway from the past couple of years has been that things are changing, pretty fluid. And so we need to come kind of at trip planning and at these trip insurance questions with the ability to kind of change as we go along and as you get closer to a trip. But the biggest takeaway that we've come out of the last 2 years is to just look at where the gaps are. Look at the gaps between your cancellation policy from a lodge or a guide, your gaps from what you're getting from your airlines, and the gaps that you're going to find through an insurance coverage of some kind. There's some operators now, like Cuba, for example, they're offering their own type of insurance, quote unquote, insurance product. And so people are wondering, is this what we need to be doing? And so we just all need to have a think about what it is you're actually on the hook for and where the gaps are.
And take some time to read the details of these policies, right?
Yeah, it's really not a lot of fun as far as trip planning goes. It's a lot more exciting to talk to you guys about, all the goods that come along with a fly fishing trip. But it's really important, especially in today's day and age. The insurance company has very little patience for people not understanding that there is a pandemic going on and that they're choosing to travel during these uncertain times.
Well, and we've always from the very beginning, talked about having a plan for if things go wrong. And usually it's like, well, I've got a conflict from work, or someone in my family got sick, or my dog died, or for whatever reason I can't make the trip. And it's oftentimes last minute, it's unexpected. So what's the plan for coverage? And the interesting thing about the pandemic and the takeaway from that is with all the trip insurance conversations we've had for years, we would go through the list of what was covered with people. And we would, again, work-related, medical, family emergency. And if you were to say to people, 19 months ago, well, just so you know, global worldwide pandemics that shut the planet down, not a covered reason, people would have laughed and been like, yeah, whatever. What's the chance of that happening, right?
Yeah.
But then it did. And so, of course, down there on the bottom of page 27 in the policy, there it was hidden. And by the way, global pandemics,
all of a sudden,
not covered.
Right? Because before this, it was you were going to countries that didn't have this type of issue. If it did, typically you're not traveling there as a leisure traveler. And so what's happened now is there's a combination of leisure travel going into areas that are requiring pandemic-like coverage. And again, up until this stage, it hasn't been something that leisure travelers had really had to have.
Well, in the times of the ongoing pandemic, and again, things are going to get better. They might get worse for a little while. We just don't know. But we do know that it's not going away, right? I mean, COVID is not something we're going to wake up a month from now and it's just going to be gone. We're going to have to learn to live with this. It's going to rear its head from time to time, maybe seasonally. During these times, is there actually legitimate protection and coverage and options that will protect traveling anglers these days? Are there products or insurance policies that still make sense for traveling anglers?
Yeah, I think you hit on it at the beginning, and Cam, you may have seen this lately with your travelers. There's still the real last minute issues that come up. I mean, we just had clients who, he's all of a sudden his son has to work. All of a sudden he broke his leg and now he can't actually go and walk the flats. These are still real things that occur that a traditional standard travel insurance policy is going to cover for. And so at a minimum, we still recommend looking at covering your trip with a standard trip insurance. And now what's happened is COVID's come along and kind of made it a little bit trickier because people want to have coverage for pretty much any reason at this point.
So is there something that, let's say I want to book a big fat trip to Kamchatka for 2023.
Yeah.
I'm going to pay now. I'm going to commit now. If, let's say, the pandemic were to get worse and the world were to shut down again, and I personally can't see that happening, but you never know, and everyone is told to stay home, lock their doors, and not emerge for 6 months, and I can't go on that trip, is there any kind of coverage that will protect me specifically against COVID closures, shutdowns, things like that?
Yeah, and so what you're going to find is standard trip insurance is not going to cover for those sorts of things. That, again, comes back to a pandemic-related type of a cancellation that just standard trip insurance as a leisure traveler will not cover. It's going to be more of a catastrophic type insurance, which you just do not need as a leisure traveler. So what you're going to find, and a lot of people are very familiar with this, it's called now cancel for any reason. Some people are calling it COVID cancellation. You'll see different insurance companies are going to spin it their own way so that it makes sense to their consumer. But, at the end of the day, they're saying, hey, listen, if you abide by these certain rules and pay extra for an optional rider, which is this cancel for any reason, then we will cover some of the costs if you have to cancel for a reason that's not covered by standard trip insurance. So they're not going to cover everything. And so some people get really upset about that. They don't like the fact that it's not going to be something that's covered 100%. But the reality is that the insurance companies, they're not in the business of necessarily covering leisure travelers for these massive catastrophic events. So what we look at then is what's the best options that we have for our angling clients, for our leisure travelers, so that they have confidence and peace of mind going into the 12 months they have to wait to go onto their trip and being comfortable with paying the operator and making travel plans and, making all of these arrangements.
So there is, this CFAR, cancel for any reason you talked about. I mean, there are products out there that will help offset the risks, give you extra peace of mind. But what I'm hearing you say is, there are different products out there. You need to understand what you're getting. You need to understand the best way to really cover yourself. And that takes a little bit of work. Yeah,
it does take a little bit. And you and Cam were talking about this before, that things are going to change. They're pretty fluid at the moment. Up until this point, the state of New York did not allow for cancel for any reason as a rider. And we're just learning that as of last year, Governor Cuomo kind of pushed on this stuff and tried to make it happen for their residents. And now it's finally coming out that some insurance companies are going to offer that CFAR rider for New York residents, which is huge. I mean, up until the pandemic, it was just never heard of that anybody from the state of New York could have that. So it is changing rapidly. There's still some very, very normal and consistent parts to an insurance policy, but I do think it's worth reading the insurance policy and having a discussion with somebody that can understand exactly what you're after.
Well, let me shift gears a little bit. And you've obviously dealt with thousands and thousands of trips that have been affected and impacted or delayed or canceled over the last 18 months since the onset of COVID. What's been your experience with the concept of patience and the idea of tenacity when pursuing insurance claims these past 18 months? Because I know, and I don't want to paint all the insurance companies with the same brush, but I know a lot of times we get the feeling that it's like, okay, they're going to deny with the expectation that you're just going to throw up your hands, get frustrated and say, I give up and walk away.
And it's true. I think that that's part of their process, is to make it very insurance-y jargon so that people do kind of walk away from it. And so I do think it's a good idea to just kind of stick at it. Look at the information you're providing to the insurance company through the insurance company's eyes and provide the supporting documents, but just that. You don't need to go on and expand upon certain things necessarily, but what they're after is it covered? Is it not? If it's covered, what is it? If it's not covered, why not? And at the end of the day, if it's something that's covered, then yeah, you should definitely appeal that claim. You should go after them, and you should make sure that they're actually going to deliver on what they said they were going to do.
And that might take some patience.
It does. It takes a while. Time. I mean, last year we were working through claims for different countries, and it was taking, we were at 6, 8, 12 months. And then on top of that, the insurance companies themselves were having delays with staffing, working remotely because of the COVID restrictions themselves. And so it just kind of had this domino effect that went through. We're still feeling it a little bit. It's not as bad, but it is certainly something people need to be aware of. It's not going to be, a 2-week turnaround time to get a check back in your pocket.
So if you're fighting for a claim, be patient and don't give up.
Yeah, be patient. Don't give up. Work with good people, work with good operators. As, you guys were talking about this before. Everybody wants to make sure you're having the best experience and that you have the right tools in your pocket. I mean, these guys that are around the globe that are working so hard to keep these programs open and to keep people coming back to these fisheries, they want to do everything they can to help you, even in the claims process. So don't be afraid to reach out and ask people for help and ask for their advice as well.
So are there common mistakes that you see travelers frequently make when submitting a claim, especially if it kind of initially ends up being denied? Are you seeing the same mistakes over and over again?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that each state that so the state you reside in has different rules as far as when you can lodge a claim and what the window is with which you can lodge the claim. So just be aware of that. If you're going to lodge a claim, make sure you understand, does it have to be done within 90 days or can it be up to a year? Each one's going to have different rules. Sometimes people think, we can just wait till later on, and then unfortunately it's too late to lodge the claim. Other things people might not know about, which is before the claims process, is if you are rescheduling these trips or there was a country that was supposed to be open, but then it closes and now you're not sure what you're going to do, if you're going on the trip or not, you can change the dates on your travel insurance coverage, on your emergency evacuation, and push those out to later dates. So working with people who can make sure that you're still getting the best out of the insurance product, kind of the process.
Well, and this is complicated stuff. I mean, that's the difference between saying, I went online and clicked the yes button and figured I had insurance. I wasn't really sure. I don't know what the product is. The difference of that and actually contacting you guys to go through and get the right product and the right coverage? Because it's not easy.
No, it's not. And there's a lot of young, savvy travelers, I would say, around the 40s, 50s, that are very fluent with the internet, going on, looking at these sites that are able to pick and choose between and do comparisons between different insurance products. At the end of the day, the nitty-gritty is where it comes down to, and if it's going to be an effective policy for the most common reasons that we see people putting in insurance claims for those destinations. Because an insurance product for Russia is going to be very different from what you need if you're going to Belize, which you guys know that, right? Like, you're packing everything up. You're not going to pack the same things that you take to Russia that you're going to take to Belize. And it's just a different approach to things.
Well, good advice. And one question we get a lot. So if travelers want coverage, they want to protect their trip investment and buy a policy. And I know this is a general question because it depends on a lot of things like age and destination, but how much should they kind of budget for these types of coverages if you just had to put out a ballpark percentage or a ballpark amount?
Sure. You could probably assume between 3 to 8% for a premium cost of a standard trip insurance. When you add on that cancel for any reason rider, depending on lots of factors, it can be anywhere between that kind of 8 to 10% of a trip cost. So obviously, the older you are, the more expensive it's going to be. We've been finding for the cancel for any reason rider, the younger you are, the more expensive it is, because who knows what you are up to. So yeah, but that's about what you can expect.
Well, and as we always tell people, you spend the money on a trip insurance policy, you probably won't utilize it, so that money just goes away and you don't think about it. But if you do need it for all kinds of unexpected reasons and you take advantage of it and you're covered and made whole, it will be the best investment you've ever made.
Yeah, exactly. And we talk about this with the insurance and with the evacuation memberships, right? If you're in a situation where you're needing that type of assistance, you're going to be very thankful that you put the money up. A lot of people are planning these trips for 24, 25, and it's okay to look online or to give us a call to find out what you can assume to budget for this type of thing so that you can already start to put it into your trip planning budget.
Well, you guys are the best. You've been doing it for a long time, and you are as good as it gets in this game of international travel for sure. Kimberly, how can people contact you for help or questions with trip insurance and coverage? How and where?
Yeah, the best place is to give us a call. You can go to our website, which is kanna.com. That's KANNA travel.com. And email us agent@kannatravel.com. We look forward to working with you guys.
Well, this has been great, guys. Kind of a big overview of the state of travel today, how things look moving forward, how to plan, how to schedule the best dates and times, how to protect that investment, and how to be a smart, travvy, successful destination angler for sure. So, Kimberly, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jim. I appreciate it.
Cam, you are a wealth of information and knowledge.
What he lacks in hair, he makes up for.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Well, it's awesome to sit down with you guys again to kick off season 2 of Waypoints. Appreciate you taking the time to talk through all this information, and I know that our listeners appreciate it as well. And that's it for this episode of Waypoints, the podcast that is 100% dedicated to travel, adventure, and exploration. Be sure to visit yellowdogflyfishing.com to plan and research your next fishing trip. Sign up for newsletters and new podcasts, and stay up to date on the latest travel news and developments as the world continues to reopen. Join us for our next episode of Waypoints, and remember, life is short and no one ever regretted a life of adventure.
This has been another episode of Waypoints, the podcast of fly fishing travel and adventure angling. Waypoints is produced by Brian Gregson with music provided by the Steep Canyon Rangers. Visit yellowdogflyfishing.com for more destination profiles, travel news, and expert advice, and be sure to join us for our next episode.